Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Williams. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Retail Redeveloped. I'm very excited today to join Bill Chidley, the co-founder of ChangeUp. He is here to talk about all things retail, design, branding. He is a guy that has worked with numerous Fortune 100 clients as both a strategy leader, a design leader, and whether developing new retail concepts or effectively integrating new digital and mobile experiences. Bill has worked with companies like Home Depot, AT&T, P&G, Dunkin Donuts, John Deere, using insight-driven strategy and creativity to imagine winning ideas and bring them to life. Bill, thank you so much for joining me today.
That sounds like you were reading something.
Yeah, I might have gotten a hold of your bio somewhere.
Okay. I was going to say you're stalking me or something.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, when I'm not doing commercial real estate and restaurants and retail, I'm a digital stalker. That's how I make my real money. Bill,
that's good.
Bill, do me a favor. Talk to everybody and tell them kind of, where did this passion for design and strategy and retail come from? Why should they listen to what you have to say? How did you get to sit in the seat that you're in now? Just talk to us a little bit about the why behind your business, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, I've got maybe an interesting background relative to maybe some of the guests you talked to or some of the people maybe even in my position. So I started it in my academic career as a design student. So I'm an industrial designer by training, meaning a product designer. So my career path when I was young was towards designing things like, cars or computers or physical objects. And when I graduated back in the mid 80s, there was kind of a recession and I was having trouble getting into that field. So I started looking at options and I actually got an offer from a retail design firm here in Ohio, and I thought, you know what, I have a friend who works there, he seems to like it, so I'm going to jump on that. So that was, over 30 years ago, and I've been at it ever since. And, the thrill of store design in the early days for me was that it was very rapid and diverse, and working with retailers in virtually every sector. So, hypermarkets, small specialty retail, restaurants, automotive, car dealership designs for manufacturers, just everything. So it was a niche in terms of retail, but it was very broad once I got into it. So one fear that design students typically have is they feel like they're going to get pigeonholed into something and then spend 30 years, designing widgets and getting really bored. But that's never happened in retail. Retail's always got some, consumer behavior that you're trying to adjust or adapt to. It's always got, the depth of the merchandising, the environment, everything, even the scent of a store can be on the table. And the other thing about it is that it's fast-paced. I had colleagues early in my design career who were able to get into the classic product design fields, and what would happen is they would spend months or even years developing a product that would never see the light of day. And with retail design, you were designing a store in February and you were walking through it in June, right? So, and then it scaled, right? You'd see them all over the country in a matter of years. So it was very gratifying from that aspect as well. So I did that and led teams on that for quite a while, and then made the jump over to more of a strategy position. What happened is we brought in, at the time I was with a firm called Design Forum, which is still the DNA of ChangeUp. Those folks have we've gone through a couple iterations and acquisitions and buying ourselves back and et cetera. So a lot of the core team, our CEO, as a matter of fact, is the founder of Design Forum back in the day who hired me. But nonetheless, what ended up happening was we brought in a strategy person. This was probably in the late 90s. and he had been with, I think, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and had a lot of analytics and research kind of tools that we were using to deal with brand and deal with environment and experience. And I became kind of that connective tissue between his toolkit and the designers, and socializing research and insights into the designers' heads as they were designing, as well as vice versa, getting the analytics people to have kind of a design perspective and realizing it wasn't all paint by numbers. So I kind of played that intermediary role, and then eventually I had somebody tell me once that I was like a doctor who became a disease, but nonetheless I made the switch from leading design to actually leading strategy.
I've heard backhanded compliments before, but that's a that's a tough one.
Yeah, of course, it was probably after a couple drinks, but and just stuff like that comes out. But anyway, the rest is kind of history. I started getting more and more into understanding brands. We were actually acquired by Interbrand towards the early 2000s, and Interbrand is the largest or one of the largest branding firms, branding agencies globally, and really dialed up that perspective, and worked with some, as you mentioned, Fortune 100 brands. So that was a huge education and a huge immersion into the branding world on top of the retail design world. So I've kind of had, an even broader perspective on some of the challenges that retailers and restaurants face in terms of driving the top line and then making sure the bottom line looks right at the end of the day.
So walk me through kind of a day in your shoes. Like what does a project look like for you? Are you coming in when somebody's bringing you the back of a bar napkin saying, "Hey, I've got this new coffee brand I want to roll out," or are people coming to you when maybe they've already launched a product or a brand and feel like it's not resonating? Like walk me through. Because you have a huge track record in history. Walk me through what you're doing now and what is kind of getting you out of bed in the morning, other than coffee.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a number of scenarios that bring people to ChangeUp, that would affect any given day, and the clients I'd be working with. But you mentioned startups, somebody who has a new coffee idea or whatever, and that's certainly real, right? There's that could look like someone who has a big idea and they've got, some venture capital and they've been through one or two rounds of funding, and they're looking to go from a code name for the project to a real brand name with a real brand identity and a real differentiated experience that brings their core idea to life. So, we'll work with companies who are moving from sort of a digital platform to a brick and mortar platform, or they've got some integrated solution. For instance, we have got a client called Wash Lava, which is a startup in Tampa, out of Tampa, and it's a technology platform that allows you to do your laundry without coins, right? So you use your phone as a means of unlocking the washers and dryers to pay, and you attach a credit card or a PayPal or something to it, sort of almost like iTunes for laundry. So it's much less mundane than that, in that there's all kinds of functionality where you can go on the app on your phone and actually see if there are machines available. And this is taking off in mostly in college environments where you've got a lot of students, and you've got facilities either on campus or off campus that have obviously washers and dryers, which is what students need when they're not going home. So they can literally reserve a machine from their phone, and when they get to the environment, that machine is lit for them, and they know that when they get there, they're not just gonna have to spin their wheels until a machine comes up. Then they can leave and monitor the machine on their phone, and know that they can go get Starbucks or run an errand while their stuff's in the machine and know exactly when they need to be back. They can add permission for the attendant at the laundromat to move their stuff to a dryer for an upcharge. They can add time to a dryer remotely. They can, so anyway, not to get over descriptive, which I probably have already, but nonetheless, what we are doing with them is designing that environment and that experience for them. So that's a scenario. Another scenario is where you have an older concept. We just did a redesign for Vitamin Shop. So we helped them redesign the space to promote different offers that were more subscription, to dial up the consultative aspects of it, introduce some new technology into the store. And then also they're looking at a different kind of maybe more of a franchise model for the concept. So, how do we get the economics right to roll it out? So my day would be around, sitting with the design team, figuring out what the business, what's the business problem that we're trying to solve with design, and how do we potentially use research tools or investigative tools with customers, whether that's qualitative work or whether it's quantitative research, to inform that design so that we can have some of those business questions that might exist illuminated, so that we're not just decorating something, we're actually designing something strategically that is going to move the needle.
So through all of these, what would you say is kind of an underlying problem, whether it's a new company, a company that's been around and wants kind of a shot in the arm and maybe like a fresh face, or somebody that's having issues and it's a turnaround strategy? Do you look at 50 of these and 30 of them all share one similar problem that you can almost go into a meeting knowing that you're gonna see?
Thing that we try to do is, where are the opportunities or apertures in the design or the flow through the space that can introduce a voice, the retailer's voice, in a way that that connects versus just being a warehouse for stuff. And then there's also the need to kind of leave some sort of residue, emotionally or memorably in the experience, so that people know if they've had a good experience in that space, they can attribute it to a brand. It isn't just some anonymous or convenient trip. It's like it builds equity. In order for positive emotions to flourish in an environment, you have to make sure that you remove as much of the anxiety in that experience as you possibly can, because otherwise that'll swamp the boat. People can't feel the good feelings and capture this sort of positive emotional residue if they're under stress. And that stress could be that this place doesn't look like it's for people like me, or the other people in this environment don't look like me, or it could be that I can't find what I'm looking for. So part of the design process needs to be unearthing all of the potential anxieties and then mitigating them through better merchandising, or the imagery I spoke of earlier that you might want in the environment, and just the communications of the finishes and all those things to either signal that it's expensive or it's not expensive, or it's upscale or not upscale, all those things that may or may not evoke some kind of negative, not for me signal, before you can then build on the things that might stick.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. I love getting into the psychology of the consumer. One thing that I would like to talk about, obviously, the timing right now, we're in the middle of a pretty unprecedented shift in consumer behavior because we're all locked in our house. I'm talking to you right now from my 5-year-old's bedroom in a weak excuse for a makeshift podcasting studio. So I apologize if the sound isn't the same as it always is. I would love while we're talking psychology, I would love for you to tell us a few things that you think are going to change consumer behavior or change the retail landscape going forward, And I'd love to hear your insight on what you think is going to happen there.
Sure. Yeah. It's amazing we haven't talked about that yet. So there's a lot of stories going. There are a lot of stories going around, a lot of conjecture going around about what's going to happen after this, and are we going to somehow be some new species after this is over? And I don't think so. I think people are going to, as far as COVID paranoia is concerned, or I think, yeah, there'll be maybe a period of time where we kind of evolve back out of this state of paranoia that we're in. But I think what's really going to be a bigger disruptor is that we're creatures of habit and we love patterns in our lives. And when those patterns are disrupted, as they have been over the past month and maybe the next month or two or whatever, those patterns all get disrupted, right? So, we seek patterns because we can't possibly manage all the stimulus and make all the decisions required with a lot of attention every day. So we look for shortcuts, and those shortcuts could be where where we shop, how often we shop, the products we buy in those contexts, what drives need states. All those things have become this pattern behavior over the past, our lives up to this point. And all of a sudden now there's this disturbance in the matrix, right? And it's forcing us to reassess all of those patterns and look at things in a new way. And did we really need those things that we were buying before? Did we really need to go to those kinds of stores now because we can do things online? All of this disruption in our lives is creating or forcing us to reevaluate so much about our behavior, consumer behavior, that those are the things I think that are going to create the after effects. That and the recession that is inevitable with this, right? So I remember when the 2008-2009 recession hit. I was actually working very closely with Procter and Gamble, and we saw a lot of people walking away from premium brands like Tide because first of all, they'd rather pay $5 for detergent in that kind of a recession than 14. And then they were washing their clothes, and their friends weren't saying, "Oh gosh, what did you do? Switch detergent?" Nobody knew what they were using to wash their clothes. Nobody knows what toothpaste you use when you brush your teeth. So a lot of those value propositions were being readdressed as people didn't have the same means as they had before. So I think that's probably what's going to come out of this a little bit more. So maybe, this could be disastrous for department stores because people are going to be saying, "Hey, I can, order 5 pairs of shoes online and send, 4 of them back, and I never had to leave my house." Things like that. Are we going to maybe err on the side of wanting more convenience? Probably, because we need convenience now, because we don't want to leave. So that might drive us to make different choices after this because, hey, I didn't know that I could have such a great experience getting food delivered to my house and have such fun watching a movie over some tacos versus sitting in a Mexican restaurant.
But I would say, and this is for me personally, like I'm a huge food restaurant nerd. Like I am itching so badly to get back out and go to my favorite taco joint, go to my favorite restaurant, that I do think that there's going to be kind of a bounce back effect if they let people in at the same occupancy numbers that were there before, which is certainly up in the air.
I do believe that, afterwards, shoppers, consumers are going to have a heightened expectation for authenticity and brands and retailers that they thought did the right thing during the crisis. Like, did they take care of their employees? Did they take care of me in whatever way that might look, depending on what category you're talking about? I mean, I know that car companies are reaching out to defer payments and a lot of things like that, and that afterwards there will be an expectation for honesty and authenticity from brands. There will also be a demand for new experiences. I think I've talked before about how, we need to make people feel like it's spring again, even if this is going to be in the winter when everything kind of normalizes. People are going to want to get out and feel refreshed and feel optimistic. And brands and retailers and restaurants need to kind of project that optimism and bigger yet authentic smile kind of feelings. I do think that there will be a heightened sensitivity to health. I don't think that that's going to mean that everything in the grocery store is going to be, in the meat case, is going to be handled with a 10-foot pole or anything like that. But I do think people are going to probably be less comfortable congregating around counters in the grocery store and being shoulder to shoulder with things. I think people are going to stand back a little bit and wait for people to be finished, which may cause some anxiety or confrontation, maybe even in environments that we need to plan to mitigate. And then to your point earlier, I think about Uber Eats and DoorDash and things like that, Shipt and Instacart. It's going to propel or quicken the adoption of some of those things that we knew were coming anyway. Apple Pay and Google Pay are really legit, right? I mean,
Right.
I can just hold my phone right up there and use my thumbprint to purchase things. And then that also leads to maybe higher adoption of that, as well as things like walk right out technology like
Right.
Amazon
Like
Go,
Amazon, yeah.
right? So as those things ramp up, maybe a little bit faster, because retailers don't want to feel like they're behind the curve, especially when people are more sensitive to that, I think that could be very transformational for retail. You might not, imagine a grocery store where you didn't have to funnel all of the shoppers through 8 lanes or 10 lanes in the front of the store, and they could come and go through the front, the side, wherever, park wherever, based on what they wanted to shop for in the store, because you didn't have to have that funnel right through the front door.
Right.
So I think that could be really transformational.
So let's shift back off of COVID because if I don't, I'll just get depressed, and nobody likes a depressed podcast host. So I want to talk to you about technology for a second, and you've already been really generous with your time. So I want to ask you some kind of quick knee-jerk kind of questions as we start to wrap up. I'd love to understand what technology brands have been incorporating to enhance the retail experience lately, or what technologies that you've seen that have had a large impact on store design.
I think that digital pricing on the shelf. I know Kohl's has been doing that for a while, but I think that that has a lot of merit. It's not only is it labor saving, but and it's getting cheaper and cheaper to execute, but you can actually have almost demand pricing models in the store, which I think can really, not to be used sort of in a sinister way, but I think it can help with margin, because you can kind of see in real time what people are buying, what baskets are looking like, and maybe adjust pricing in the stores to maximize margin. I'm interested also in the idea of video, essentially robots in the stores. Robotics is, I think we're getting much more comfortable with robots, whether it's a voice robot with, Alexa, or if it's your Roomba in your house, or, some, Internet of Things device that you've got in your kitchen. I think that will lead us to being a lot more comfortable interacting with sort of virtual attendants and virtual maitre d's and a lot of different things that will potentially, if they're just used to replace a labor point, I don't know that that's really the best use. It certainly is a financially sound use, but I think that there's additional things that they might be able to do because they're connected, like find something in another store that is out of stock, or ship something to your house with just you telling, or scanning your, an app. there's a lot of functionality that I think that they can have that are beyond maybe what just a human could do in the store alone. So I think those are two pretty powerful, things that are coming on fast.
Uh,
Yeah.
Well, Bill, would you do me a favor? Tell people how they can find out some of the articles that you're writing, how they can connect with you, how they can learn more about ChangeUp, and just how people can get to know you a little bit more.
Well, what I would recommend is just visiting our website, which is ChangeUp, ChangeUp, Inc., Inc. That's all one word, ChangeUpInc.com. I'm on LinkedIn and providing content and points of view on that for a while. So you can look me up there, Bill Chidley, Chidley. Those are, I think, the two hot ones.
As a parting shot, I'd love for you to mention maybe a brand that you think is well positioned to get stronger coming out of this crisis, whether it's from the grocery segment or whether it's from a different part of the world. I'd love to hear your perspective if you think somebody is going to come out of this better than going in.
Wow, I think it's going to be a good thing or a positive outcome for grocery for sure. Just generally, I think that they're sort of reclaimed the essential business platform. I think that Walmart is probably going to have a good benefit from this because I think they've been doing a lot of things outside of their core to sort of help the cause with either supply chain or getting gowns and PPE to the right places at the right time and sort of helping and assisting on that. So I think that's going to leave a halo. I think that those core retailers that we're leaning on at this point in time are going to basically continue to see the upside after this is over.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you joining me today. I think we've all learned a lot, and stay safe out there. And I'm going to keep following your articles and your insights, and I appreciate you putting that out there for the public.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.